In this lecture, I'm going to introduce you to a very important topic called deferred execution. So we've got this piece of code here. We get the list of all courses from the database, iterate over them, and display them on the console. I'm going to run this application in the debug mode, one line at a time, and show you what happens behind the scene. So first, I put a breakpoint here. So I press F9 and run the application in debug mode with F5. Okay, here we are. Now we need to open up SQL Profiler. In case you have not used SQL Profiler, it's a very useful tool that comes with SQL Server, and we use it to inspect the queries that are run on a database. So we go to SQL Server, under Tools, SQL Server Profiler. So we connect to our instance of SQL Server. Accept the defaults, it doesn't really matter. Okay. So in this panel here, we'll see the queries that will be run in SQL Server. Now back to Visual Studio. I'm going to step over this line with F10. And again. Now at this point, you might think that Entity Framework ran a query against our database, got the result, and stored it in the courses variable. But I'm going to show you that's not the case. So we go back to SQL Server Profiler. Look, we haven't gotten anything here yet. So let's go back to Visual Studio. I'm going to continue execution with F10. And again. And one more time. And again. Okay, we are inside the for each block. Now let's go back to SQL Profiler. Now we got all these items in the query panel here. And from this list, look at SQL batch starting here. And this is the actual query that was run by Entity Framework to get the list of all courses from the database. So query expressions are not executed at the time you create them. They're executed when one of these situations happens. When we iterate over a query variable or call one of these methods, to list, to array, to dictionary, or any methods that return a singleton value, like first, last, single, count, max, min, and average. So this is what we call deferred execution. Queries are not executed immediately. Now you might ask, what is the benefit of this deferred execution? Deferred execution enables queries to be extended. So back in Visual Studio, I can extend this query and filter only courses in level 1. So var filtered courses dot where c goes to level equals 1. I can also sort them. So order by c goes to name. And the interesting thing is none of these are executed against the database yet. So we're just extending our query. Later, when we get to for each block, the query will be executed. Now, just to clarify something, I'm not suggesting to write queries like this, storing results in different variables. We can chain these method calls as we did before. For example, I can do where here, and then order by. You got the point. Now, there are times that you may want to immediately execute a query because your queries cannot be translated into SQL. Let me walk you through a real-world scenario. So we go to the course class. I'm going to declare a property here. Is beginner course. And this is a calculated property. So I just check if level equals 1. Sometimes we add properties or methods in our domain classes to make them more expressive. And this is one example. Now back to the program. Let me clean up here. Imagine I want to get all beginner courses. So if I want to use my new property, my query would end up looking like this. is beginner course equals true, right? Now, if we run this application, we're going to get a runtime exception. Close the program. Read the exception. The specified type member is beginner course is not supported in link to entities. So link to entities is the link provider that is used by Entity Framework that translates our queries into SQL statements. So in this case, because this is a custom property, link to entities does not know how to translate this into SQL. In that case, the workaround that is to load the courses from the database first, and then in memory, we can use this where clause. So this is where we use immediate execution. So I would put a to list here. At this point, the query is executed. We get all courses in memory, and then this where clause will be executed. Now there's a caveat here. This is going to impact the performance of our application because we are loading all courses from the database just to filter them into memory. So if you want to go for an optimized solution, you cannot use custom properties like this. Well, it's not quite true. There is actually a way around that, but we're not going to get there yet. Just remember, if you want a fully optimized solution, you might still have to use your properties like level here to do the comparison. But these performance problems are not always noticeable. Sometimes you're working in a small application with a small table with small number of records, then you might be better to use these custom properties to make your code more expressive. So the takeaway from this lecture is query expressions are not executed immediately. Their execution is deferred. And this happens when you iterate over them or when you convert them to some kind of list or array or dictionary or use one of the methods that convert them to a singleton value like first, last, single, count, max, and so on. I hope you enjoyed this lecture and thank you for watching.